Welcome, everybody. I think this is our fifth Water School Africa presentation and discussion session. We hope to keep them going and start to link more and more people up who are working in some way with communities across the continent to try and get all runoff water into the ground and harvest water into the ground or into small storages. So we'll hand over to Walter, will present in a little while, and big welcome to him. I've known Walter Philip was asking me how long have I known Walter, and I'm Mugove Walter, and I 1996 jumped into my mind. I don't know if that's correct. I think it's right. We met in 96, was it 95, 96? I think so.
Yes, I think around that time.
Yeah, and yeah, we've been working fairly closely on different things since then, and I've watched Walter with the work with schools. So the whole focus has been with schools, but schools in communities, linking with communities. So it's not an isolated island, seeing the school as an island, but a school in the community. First with Scope Zimbabwe, and then since I think sort of 2007, 2008, sorry, Ian, if you could, there's some background.
If somebody could mute themselves.
I think as host you can mute if you want, Philip.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think since 2007, 2008, Walter's been helping schools programs, scope programs in Malawi, Kenya, Uganda, and Zambia to get going. And now there's this ReScope, a regional network work, and I think between them working with many different schools, and water harvesting is very much at the helm of it. But as you'll see from today's presentation, it's also very much about working with communities and schools. So this is the first of two presentations. The next one will be on the 12th of April. So thanks so much for taking time to do this presentation, Walter. I'll just, Philip, just say a couple of words, as that's fine, share your screen, that's okay, about the water school and just for those who are new, and yeah, how the water school came into being, and just very briefly, what is its approach and philosophy?
Yeah, well, thanks, John, and thanks, Walter, for attending today. So the water school is like a basket that's holding many practices of how one can work with nature to restore the different cycles, the water cycle especially, in order to create a transformed environment for both economic, social, agricultural advance. And the idea is, there's a lot of talk at the moment on what we can do to restore our relation to the planet, but there's a lot of examples of people who've been doing that using traditional methods for many generations. And so it's a great pleasure to welcome Walter today to continue this fifth presentation of local work in Africa. And anybody who's new, please do put your email into the chat so we can keep you updated with new events. And the website with all the presentations and films on is waterways.world/Africa. I'll put that into the chat towards the end. So thank you very much for attending, and I'll now hand over to Walter.
Thank you very much, John and Philip, for the introduction, and the greetings, everyone. Greetings from Lusaka, Zambia. So I'm going to share with you the work that we have done with one community in southern Zambia, which we started working with just last year, and we have had quite a bit of excitement about the impact that we are beginning to see in that community. So to begin with, I will describe the location of the community, and then after that I'll give a bit of context, and then describe what we have done, and show you a few pictures of what is happening in the community. So Haanamoonga community is in the eastern part of Mugove district, which is one of the districts in the southern part of Zambia. So it's a part of the southern province. The community is largely composed of Tonga-speaking people, which is one of the 73 languages that are spoken in Zambia. And the community is under the Chona chieftaincy. So it's part of the Chona chiefdom. And the community is also located in the Zambezi Valley, on the edge of the Zambezi Valley, the Zambezi escarpment, which is the southern edge of the Great East African Rift Valley. So because of the escarpment, the terrain is quite hilly, the terrain is rugged in that area. And also it is in the drier agroecological zones of Zambia. So we have rainfall that averages around 600 millimeters per year. So it's a fairly dry area, and the rainfall is not so reliable in that area. So that's the location of the area. My changing slide feature is not responding. I wanted to move the slides.
Maybe if you use the mouse wheel.
Or the mouse. I don't think I have it nearby.
Okay.
So hopefully it will start responding. So the historical context is that we only started working with this community in 2021, and we started working there because we were invited by one of the community leaders, who is the vice headman of the village, and he invited us because he had earlier on attended one of our integrated land use design trainings. So as ReScope, we use the permaculture approach to the work that we do, and in that approach we use the schools as entry points into communities. And so we have developed a process or a tool that we use when we work with the school communities. So for us, schools are not just about teachers and learners, but they are very much about the parents, most of whom are farmers. So when we work with the schools, we always engage the parents. So we use what we call a whole school approach to working with the schools. And the whole school means that our approach is inclusive of all the stakeholders that are part of the school, including the community leaders and the parents. And we also call it whole school approach because unlike other school garden projects, we do not work with just one corner of the school, which is called a garden. For us, the whole school, starting from the main gate through to the classroom areas, to the sports fields, right to the back of the school, the whole area under the school is subject to the redesigning so that the school can make good use of the environment that they have. So, and all the learners, all the classes, all the teachers, and even the administrative staff are also involved in the program. So it's a very much participatory and also holistic in nature. So
Walter?
when the vice headman of the Haanamoonga community attended one of our trainings, he got inspired and invited us to share his vision of transforming his community using the permaculture integrated land use design tools. So this work we are doing in Haanamoonga is part of the Seed and Knowledge Initiative landscape approach to agroecology. So we have several communities in Southern and Eastern Africa who are piloting the landscape approach to agroecology. And so we decided to work with the Haanamoonga in this pilot. And we have some support from the Agroecology Fund to kickstart this work. But underpinning this work is the very important principle that it is community-driven work. So we try to really get the community to be in full control of what happens in their community. So we come to the community just as friends of the community, and they dictate what happens. So in December last year, we conducted an integrated land use design training in the community, and that training was attended by 25 local people whom we think would become the local resource persons going forward. And as part of our training, we always feature rainwater harvesting as an important aspect among many other aspects that we cover. And in the integrated land use design process, we go through 5 key stages or steps. And the first one is grounding.
Walter, sorry to interrupt
yes,
you.
John?
I'm not sure if you're wanting to move on to other slides yet, because if you're struggling, maybe I could try.
Or you can, yeah, because I sent you the presentation.
Yeah.
That's fine. So you can.
So if
Shall
you
I
stop
stop
sharing,
sharing?
yeah, and then I'll
Okay.
try. And if it fails with me, I've sent it to Philip as well. So I think we'll. So let me try. I was just thinking you might have wanted to be going on to some of your other slides as you're talking. I'm not sure. Can you see mine?
Yes. So you can go on, yeah, slideshow, and yeah, you can start from the beginning, and then yeah, move on to the second one.
Location.
I think I've already talked about that part, the location of the area. Next one. So that's the context that I've already shared with you.
So I think you got up to here, hadn't you? Yeah.
Yes. So I was talking about the integrated land use design, which is our homegrown tool for school communities to transform their minds and landscapes. So as part of the grounding, which is about reconnecting with nature, culture, and history, we ask the communities to describe the quality of water and access to water as it was a long time ago, as they were told by their great-grandparents, so that they reconnect with the abundance in terms of water that he used to exist. And then in the second step, we ask them to look at their resources, the existing resources that they have, and we help them to recognize that, for example, buildings are sources of water, which they can make use of. And after that situational analysis, we ask them to look into the future so that they can describe the kind of dreams that they have, both in terms of water, in terms of soil, in terms of their farming, quality of life, etc. And once they have a clear vision, we then help them to use design skills, integrated land design skills, to redesign their land. And once they have come up with a design, they then come up with a work plan, which will guide their work going forward. So that's the ILUD process that we went through with the Haanamoonga community. Next slide. So as part of our interventions, we looked at the principles and techniques of rainwater harvesting with this group, and we demonstrated how to make rainwater harvesting structures such as swales and pit beds. And after the training, the participants started making the rainwater harvesting structures on their land, beginning with the area around the homesteads, moving on to their gardens and fields. And the rains came late in that community. The main rains came in January 2022. So when the rains came, the community was amazed to see the structures that they had constructed collecting a lot of water. And the next slide. So you can see on the left-hand side there, the community making swales to harvest rainwater. And then on the right-hand side, we have 2 swales full of water when the rains came. So there was really a lot of excitement in the community when they saw the amount of water that they were catching each time it rained. Next slide. So the results were that there was a lot of excitement about rainwater harvesting. So they started making more structures, and also they even started making small dams across the streams. With that little bit of work that they've done over the last 3 months, they have surprisingly managed to see that a bowl that had long dried started yielding water. Yeah, that was really exciting, and we were surprised to see that very, very immediate impact of the rainwater harvesting. This village, which has more than 100 households, has only one supply of domestic water. So the second bowl that was there is the one that had dried a long time ago. So now, as a result of the harvesting of rainwater, we have the resuscitation of this long dried well. On the right hand side, you can see a homestead there with the rainwater being harvested by the structures that they dug. And yeah, so this is where they started around homesteads, and they are moving on to more and more areas. What has also been exciting for us was the involvement of young people, like the young man on the right hand side there with a blue top. I think he's 23, somewhere there, 23 years, and he's one of the people trained, and he has been in really doing a lot of implementation. Very excited about the rainwater harvesting. And yeah, young people have a lot of energy, and this has been of immense value to the community. And that community, like many others, is a very youthful population. Next slide. And on the left, you can see another young man with the pit bed that he dug, and he was admiring the effectiveness of the rainwater harvesting after the rains came. And on the right hand side, you can see some community members beginning to work on check dams, closing small streams so that they can capture water. And I think you can see at the bottom some of the water being harvested already. Next slide. Challenges have been tools for rainwater harvesting in particular. They don't have enough tools, and also with the delayed rains, the ground was, the soil was hard, compacted, and difficult to dig. And also because of poor land use in the past, the soils are very highly compacted. And then mindsets are a big problem. People have negative mindsets, especially to working with nature, because of the Western influence, the so-called modernization. Then also another challenge is the dependency syndrome. Many people in the communities, they are used to getting handouts, and this includes the local government officials in the area. For example, we invited the agricultural extension officers to the ILUD training, and they wanted to be paid allowances for attending. Then we said, no, you will find us later. So we went on with the training without them, and hopefully the community will eventually become their teachers on what they learned. And then, like in many communities, you have petty jealousies and issues to do with community cohesion or lack of it. Then the assets in this community, a very youthful population, and the plenty of stones for rainwater harvesting. Water shortages are also a blessing because people are appreciating the rainwater harvesting a lot because they've been facing serious water shortages. Then a big asset also are hardworking farmers. The people in that community are well known for working hard, for being hardworking farmers. Next slide. We have learned that the bottom-up approach does work well. So we have tried very much to have this work being owned by the community, and we have also tried to be consistent in sticking to our principles of community-driven work. And we have learned that it is important to nurture the drive of the community, and just to go by the community and at their pace, and also looking at what they want. Then also it's very important to have an inclusive approach so that the door is open to all stakeholders to work together. And also we have seen the importance of good quality demonstrations which people can then emulate. Next slide. So our next step in terms of rainwater harvesting and the landscape work is to look at holistic grazing area management. We have already sensitized the community on this, at least some members of the community on this, and they are going to meet on Sunday to see. So those who cannot hear, maybe I can switch off my video to improve the quality of the the voice.
I can hear you well.
So
I think it's different people.
okay, thank you.
Very clear to me. I think it depends on some. Okay, go ahead. But maybe switch off your video and then see if that helps others.
So the next aspect is this holistic grazing area management, which I said we've already sensitized them on, and they are going to meet on Sunday to map their way forward in terms of holistic grazing area management. And yeah, the numerous streams in the area, so they will continue making small dams across these streams, and yeah, hopefully by the next rain season we will see the impact of this. And then we also are now looking at we have divided the community into 4 zones. And so there are trainings on various aspects, including rainwater harvesting, that are happening and are being carried out by the local resource persons. Thank you very much. I hope I have left enough time for questions. So that's all that I had to share with you. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Walter, for that. Really interesting and very encouraging to see that momentum so quickly. And I think with water harvesting, it really is that you do see the results quite quickly and people recognize it. But it's interesting how you've really emphasized that the technical side's important, of course. It's really important that you do the swales correctly and you design the whole system correctly. But really what it's all about is making it community driven. So that came over very clearly to me. So let's open up to discussion. Any questions you might have, any comments, any reactions or any thoughts it gives rise to? I'll go to Zab Comms. I'm not sure who that is, but maybe introduce yourself and go ahead with your question. Then I'll come back to yours in the chat, Peter. Go ahead, Zab Comms. You're on mute. Zab Comms, your hand's up. You're on mute. Would you like to go ahead? Okay, well, while we're waiting for Zab Comms, I'll go to Peter's question in the chat. You can see there, Walter, are the swales constructed by each farm family, or individually in other words, or collective work with community work groups? Maybe you could respond to that one. And then we'll try Zab Comms again just now.
Thank you, Peter, for the question. Yeah, so the rainwater harvesting work has started from the homestead. So we have each family, each household has been working on their homestead land, the area around their homestead. And then after that, the same household moves on to their garden or fields. So we haven't reached the stage where they are looking at the commons. So when they get to the commons, that's when they will start working together so that they can work on the areas that are communally owned. So up to this point, it has been household per household, starting from their doorstep and going outwards. So eventually they will start working together, especially when it comes to check dams and the pastures and other commons.
Great. Michael Moyo, please go ahead.
Okay, I want to find out, my interest is on the correlationship between the water harvesting techniques and the bore that had dried up. What's the correlationship there? And then the picture that I've been seeing, I'm seeing they are showing us when it was during was it off season or it's on season? My picture that we're showing on the slides, was it off season rainfall or on season? Because right now I understand that due to climate change, we're having increase in temperatures, which results in high evaporation rates especially to open reservoirs for water. So I want to understand on that aspect.
Thank you very much for that question, Michael. I will start with the later part of the question because that water that you were seeing in the pictures is not permanent water. That is water that is just collecting soon after the rainfall episode. So the idea is to prevent water from flowing away from the land. So those structures stop the flow of water and encourage the water to infiltrate, to enter the soil. So after some hours, that water disappears into the ground. So it's not permanent water. So it's water that has been collected during rainfall events and is temporarily kept there as it gets time to sink into the ground. So this was happening in January, February, when that area was having its rain season. Then the connection between this and the bowl. So the bowl had dried for years. Even like the previous rain season, the rainfall was quite high, but that bowl still remained empty. So the connection between the bowl and the rainwater harvesting is that when you stop water from flowing away from your land, you are increasing the storage of water in the groundwater store. So that means over time, the water table rises because you are recharging the groundwater storage. So when the water table rises, it means that the water is moving closer and closer to the surface, to the ground surface. And when you have got a well or a bowl, the water table can rise to such an extent that the water starts being seen in the well or bowl. So that's how this bowl came back to life, because the community has been channeling water in the ground. Ordinarily, all this water would have flowed to the streams, and some of the streams there flow into the Zambezi River and all the way to Mozambique and the Indian Ocean. So once that happens, that water is gone and gone forever. So this work is therefore preventing water from being lost from this community.
Great, thanks, Walter. Lovely detailed explanation there, I think. And I think you've answered Zabcom's, maybe Zabcom's, you could change your name and put your name there, it would be nice. But I think the question from Zabcom's is similar, and I think you've answered that. Peter G, would you like to go ahead? I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, Walter, if you could, I think maybe you've answered it partially already, but in the context, did you talk about the rainfall pattern in that part? I think you said it was quite dry. And so I can understand better, the context in which the water harvesting is being done. And then related to that, I have two sort of sub-questions. Does it help the current crops to prevent them from being affected by drought or interseasonal drought to have the water soak into the ground? Or is it just basically to try to raise the water table? And then the second question related to that is those pits that I saw, I'm not sure what you call them again. How long does the water last in them, and what's the use of doing that work? Is it in addition to the swales? So those are my two questions, Walter. Thank you for a good presentation.
Thank you very much. I think the first part of your question is about the context. So yes, this area is in the context of Zambia, it is considered a low rainfall region. I think I mentioned 600 millimeters plus or minus on average, but that rainfall is very unreliable. It varies from season to season. So that is the context. Then the water that is trapped in the pits, it is there quite temporarily, depending on the infiltration rates. It can last just for a few hours usually. And the idea of those pits is to stop the flow of water. That is the main idea of those pits, to stop the flow of water. Once water enters a pit, it can no longer move, so it has no choice but to enter the soil. So that's the idea of those pits. But as we move on, they will also use those pits to plant water-loving crops such as bananas and pawpaws, and also the bed around the pit can also be planted with vegetables or other crops. Then the idea of sinking the water is not only just to recharge the groundwater store, but it also useful for the crops that are grown in the area, because we are talking of retaining moisture, and once you have water stored in the ground, capillary rise will ensure that the crops benefit from the water that is stored in the ground. So it's for both benefiting the existing crops and also recharging the groundwater storage. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Walter, for that as well. And just to add on, I don't know if you were at the last presentation, Peter, from Mugove. What they're doing quite a lot now is that they are harvesting water into kind of temporary water storage. So they either line the small ponds, dams, or the soil that enables it, so that they're catching water during the rainy season. Because the climate change, what's the big problem here in this part of the world are the long spells within the season of dryness. That's hit Zimbabwe this year and has really devastated a lot of the crops. We had a good start, but then we had a long dry spell. So what they're doing in Mugove, which is a very dry part of Zimbabwe, is they're catching water in these temporary ponds or small dams or whatever you like. And then they're using that water to, I don't know if you call it irrigation, because it's just to keep their crops alive during a dry spell until the next rain comes. So in that way, I think Walter's right. On a slope, you're benefiting the crops as it flows down or through that capillary action. But also it's possible to have these collections, and they're doing it all over the community in Mugove. So we've got another question here. So holding rain runoff in the soil helps recharge the water aquifers and increases the soil water holding capacity. It also reaches the shallow well around areas. Okay, so that's from Esther. So just adding to Walter's explanation of kind of recharge, getting the water in the ground and recharging wells. And
there's also a question from Neva on what are the quality issues related to the harvested water and how are they addressed. Yes, that's a good question. So we have, because the land husbandry, the land care has been bad, where the soil is left bare for in many areas. You find that, as you saw in the pictures, the water has got a brownish color, which means that it has a lot of soil in it. And that is due to poor land care. So over time, this will be addressed by improved farming methods, where, for example, we are encouraging them to mulch the soil. and also to reforest the landscape. So once they start doing this, the quality of water will improve. You find the water becomes clearer and clearer over time. And we have also carried out water tests in the community, and the water tests revealed that at the moment the quality of water is very poor, a lot of nitrates, sediments and the other things in the water. And so we would want to carry out similar tests after a couple of years to see whether the quality will improve. And we are confident that we will improve the quality of water as the land care methods become better and better. Thank you for that question, Neva.
Thanks, Walter. Any more questions? Any more comments? Anything? Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, thanks so much, Walter, for that presentation. And it seems so fundamental what's happened, that the well is now giving water, the quality of the water is improving, the water can sustain crops in the dry periods, maybe new crops as bananas. And you mentioned the mindset, and I just wondered, how is this kind of elemental work affecting not only the mindset of the villagers to continue with that work, but of neighboring villages? And I know you've worked in many areas around the world. How is that knowledge and understanding spreading, and what's kind of stopping that mindset of caring for the water cycle as the water rains, is held, goes into the ground, creates crops, evaporates and comes back as rain? So how is this mindset changing in the village where you've worked, in the surroundings and in different countries that you've worked in?
Yeah. Thank you, Philip. That's actually a very important question, because for us, the main challenge in working in African communities is that of mindsets. And I want to just explain briefly what I mean here. The basic problem in many of our communities is that people wake up to think that they would want to live the typical Western lifestyle, which is about the high-tech, lots of mechanization, the sort of consumer lifestyle that they see on the TV and other media. And that mindset is about quick fix solutions, where people think that the answer to every problem is just to buy something, to buy a machine, and for example, when it comes to water, the immediate answer is just drill a deeper bore and all that. So that mindset is the greatest challenge that we face in our work. And I'm happy to say that following the work that we are doing in this community and in other communities, we found that these mindsets are slowly changing, and people are reconnecting with nature once again, which used to be the case a long time ago. And and people become much more conscious about the environment, about climate change, about care for Mother Earth as a result of this kind of work. So even in this Haanamoonga community, we are seeing positive mindsets emerging as people become more and more conscious of the importance of caring for Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thanks, Walter. Anything else? Any other reactions, comments? I was just thinking, Philip, perhaps you could, just for the people who are new arrivals, put in that website again for the water school in the chat. Would be great if you wouldn't mind. So please do have a look at the water school website. You can see other presentations there. If you know anyone else who's interested, let them have a look. This presentation will go on there in due course in the next week or so. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, Walter, we've been focusing more on water storage in the ground. I wondered if there was any other impact on preventing erosion of soil. I'm sorry to shift the focus away from water to soil, but I think they're linked, you know, because if the soil is washed away, then the organic matter is lost. And so I was wondering, did you notice or did you get feedback from the households that applied this, whether there was a reduction of soil erosion? I don't know what slope you have there, but erosion is a big problem with heavy rain, more severe rainfall coming. You see, even on what land looks like very flat, that there's a lot of erosion taking away the best soil. So could you comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Peter. Soil erosion has been happening a lot in that community. I've said the terrain there is very much rugged. So they've been losing massive amounts of water, and the water in their streams carries a lot of silt, and yeah, the rivers and streams are heavily silted. So they've lost all the pools of water that they used to have, and very little aquatic life is remaining in the rivers and streams, and they are now seasonal. All the streams in the area are now seasonal. So the beauty of swales and the pit beds, these structures, is that you are solving more than one problem with them. So in addition to channeling water into the ground, they are very effective in terms of controlling soil erosion. So once these structures, the aim is to stop the water from flowing on the ground. So once the water stops flowing on the ground, that automatically means you are stopping the erosion itself. So the only erosion that will happen will be between the swales, or between the pit beds and the other structures. So that kind of erosion, which is limited to that area, we will address it through mulching, and also producing a tree cover crops, and mulching, and having trees covering the landscape once again. So yeah, erosion is very much a target when we do these rainwater harvesting structures. So it becomes reduced over time.
Great, thanks, Walter. Anyone else like to chip in? I just wondered on the spillways, what kind of attention you give to spillways, or for the heavy storms. Maybe you could say a word about the importance of spillways.
Thank you, John. Yes, spillways are very, very important when we construct small dams. And our recommendation is to actually have 2 spillways on either side of the dam, and also actually not to to dig on these sides in terms of forming the spillway. So what is critical is to have the earth dam, that is the wall that the barrier that we put across the stream should be significantly higher than the spillways on either side of that barrier. So that's very important to prevent the check dams from being washed away. And also, what is important in terms of this process is that there is the principle of always starting from the top. So that means when we make our check dams, we should start it from near the source of the stream, and then we work our way downwards. This also prevents challenges of the dams breaking and being washed away. Also, where possible, it's important that the spillways have a good grass cover, or they have vegetation growing on them, because vegetation helps to hold the soil and prevent washing away of the dam wall. And even the barriers themselves, you saw the communities putting rocks, but after that they put soil on top, and it's also good to plant various things such as vetiver grass around these barriers. Vetiver grass and the other grasses, they help to hold the soil, and so that when there are big storms, the chances of washaways become reduced. Thank you, John.
Right. Yeah. No, because it's this climate change and these incredibly heavy storms that we can get these days. They become critical. Thanks for that. Very good. Any more before we? Otherwise, I think we'll sort of round it up. So, thanks so much, Walter. As always, very, very clear in your explanations. I'm sure everybody else has found that. And yep, we'll share the link to the website within the next week, and you'll be able to access it there. And if you want to be part of the group to make sure you get the information, please add your email address in the chat, and then you'll go on to we've got a sort of Water School Africa group gathering. And then, yeah, April the 12th, Walter will be kindly presenting again. And this time it'll focus much more on the work with schools that he's been involved in for so long. So please do join us for that and let anyone else know. And it's the same Zoom link. You use the same link, but we will send out a reminder nearer the time. Great. Okay. Well, thanks so much, and have a good day. And see you next time on April the 12th. And yeah, one other thing, if you've got something you'd like to share, work that you're doing, however grand, however modest, that's what this is about. If you're doing work, and even if you're struggling and you want input from others, or you just like to share your work, or you know someone else who you think could usefully share what they're doing, please do let us know, and then they can become part of our schedule of presentation. We just want to keep learning, keep moving forward together, and learn together about how we can really take forward these community-driven efforts to build Africa's water bank, which is what the Water School is all about.